Hey folks, welcome. I just want to give you a quick introduction to Java. There's a few things you should know. And the first is a data type, and there's actually 8 data types. There's int, which is an integer, and that could be 3, 4, 123, -5. Those are all integers. Those are whole numbers. There's also the notion of a double, and that could be like 3.141416. It just means that it's a decimal, and that it also could be positive and negative. You can also have as a double -5.3 or 5.4 or -5.0, even though that is a whole number, it's expressed as a decimal. We will also be using this course char or char, which stands for character, and that'll be like R, capital T, 1. All those are characters. It's just like basically if you were to hit one key on a keyboard, which would make an image up on your screen, that's a character. And we'll also be using Boolean, and that has one of two states. It's either true or false. Those are the 4 data types that we will be using. There are other data types that we won't be using, like long, short, byte. I believe there's 8 data types, but these are ones that I don't want you to worry about. Another thing that we'll be using is string, and that's capitalized because it's a class. So this particular class has some peculiarities that make it more like a data type, like a primitive data type, like an int or a double or a char, but the string actually works a little bit differently. So those are all things that we'll be using: int, double, char, boolean, and string. We're going to ignore the long, short, byte, and all that stuff. So let me delete that and give you your first program. Let me get rid of that line. So Hello World is your first program. It's the first program that people do in almost any language. And every Java program needs to have this public class. It doesn't necessarily need to be called Hello World, but that's the name of your program. Because it's a class, and I know it's very confusing, all these terms, but a class is something that's kind of, think of it as like, in this case, it's your software. A class is a set of code. Normally, you capitalize the first letter of the class, and you also capitalize, if you jam 2 or 3 words together, the capital letter of the next word. That's called camelback writing. We don't do this for class names in general. So it'd be hello world, or you could call it whatever you wanted. Also in Java, you need public static void main string args. This is your main method or your main function. Now, in Java, it might be the case they have 2, 3, 4, 5 different functions, but every function needs to have public static void main string args. Don't worry about what that means quite yet. In fact, you might not ever have to worry about what it means. But suffice it to say that public static void main, every program that runs needs to have a main class. The last thing that I want to point out is that there's this System.out.print line. This is the main line of code for the software. Again, the System.out.print line is a little cumbersome to do output on the screen, but that's how we do it. I know in other languages it might look like this. In fact, in Python and BASIC, you can actually just do this. You can do print hello world, or and I think you can even substitute that with a question mark. So, but in Java, you need to have both the the System.out.print line, and this will print out on another line. If you want to print out 2 things, then you do System.out.print line, the first thing and the second thing. Now, there's also, instead of print line, you can just do print, which would just make it print and not go to the next line. And there's assignments in this class where you're going to experiment with those. So I just want to give you a quick primer. And the last thing I want to do is give you a primer on comments and variable names. Comments are this // in the computer science nerd realm. We call that whack whack. So if you do whack whack on a line, you can just comment your line. So you can say, this will output some text. And typically we use comments. So as an author of software, you would write the comment so someone else who's reading your code would understand what's doing what. So this line will clearly output some text. The other type of comments that you can use, and this is explained in the reading, is the /* and then */. So anything on in between those two, you think of them as like the top half of a bun of a burger and the bottom half of a bun of a burger. Anything in between is a comment sandwich. So you can do all sorts of good stuff in between that. And usually that's when you have a lot of text that you're commenting out. You can use the / and the star. So those are comments. And the last thing is I want to show you some typical variable conventions. So variable, and if you were in the VB.NET class, then we used to do it like this: var, age, something like that. In Java, we don't have to say variable. It's implied when you give it a variable type. So int, and actually I'm going to not do it in the comments here. You can say int age, and that defines the age. Int name. Well, actually, name isn't a number, so we would call that a string. So if you have a whole bunch of letters, like a word or a sentence, you call that a string. And even though this is a poor example, you could do char middle initial, and that would be reserve space for one letter. So we have an integer, which is a whole number, because normally when someone asks you your age, you say 15, 16, 17. You don't say 17.8. So integer is sufficient for that. For your name, that's going to be a whole bunch of letters, and your middle initial would be just one character. Now, names for variables always start with lowercase letters. It's okay to have numbers and special characters so long as they are not the leading character. So you could do age 2 or age 3. There's only 1 or 2 special characters that you're allowed to use in Java, so I would advise you to not use special characters, but it's certainly okay to use numbers and letters. Just don't make the number the leading character, like I did right there. Now, variables are expected to change throughout the software, usually by the user, but occasionally by the program. On the other hand, constants do not change. And there's a couple different keywords for that: constant and final. You're going to read about those, so I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag too early on that. But the nomenclature for constants, you would say, okay, well, let's see, number of days in the week. So that's 3 words, and instead of Camelback writing, they're all capitalized, even the first letter, and they're separated by an underscore. And if I was reading this code because I'm adept at Java, I would recognize that all the letters are capitalized and there's an underscore, which means I shouldn't dork around with this number right here because it's a constant. And you would have more clues contextually in the program, like with the constant keyword or the final keyword. So that's just something to get you started. The next video, I know you can't wait, will be on arrays because I think you have a lab coming up where you need to do some arrays. Have fun.